Welcome to Atlanta Motorsports Park and say hello to the 2022 Yamaha YZF-R7. No longer can you buy an inline-four powered R6 from Yamaha. Instead, you get this for 2022, the R7 powered by Yamaha's CP2. But is it worthy of that R Series badge on the side of the bike, being a parallel twin and not an inline-four? Let's find out.
All right, here we go, flying lap on the new R7, Atlanta Motorsports Park. Super technical track, 16 turns, 9 lefts, 7 rights, lots of elevation change. Do the little chicane here, a little bit of brakes. And now set up for this carousel turn, really long sweeper to the left. Bike feels really planted the whole way through here. And then when it opens up a little bit, you punch it. It's got plenty of grunt to get you moving. Now here's the cool part about this CP2. You'd think you'd have to take this corner in second gear, but I just rolled through it in third. And there's just a lot of low end torque there. So you can ride a gear higher than you think you might need to. And now here's where it gets really fast and opens up. Bike does have a quick shifter on it. That's an option for $200. This one is fitted with it. That means I can shift through the gears, wide open throttle without using the clutch. Woo! Oh yeah. And now hard on the brakes, hard on the brakes, hard on the brakes. Down to second. Oh man. That's a hoot.
CP2 from Yamaha, 689cc parallel twin, 270-degree crank, lots of character out of this motor, and this one gets an assist and slipper clutch. The MT-07 and the Tenere 700, the two other bikes in Yamaha's lineup that use this engine, do not have an assist and slipper clutch, and that's a really nice feature, especially for track riding. Just makes your upshifts and downshifts a little smoother, and you can be a little harder on the clutch and not worry about it too much. This motor is known for a good amount of torque and also has a really unique sound due to the uneven firing order. Let's take a listen. Gearing's been slightly optimized for a super sports, so compared to the MT-07, they drop down a tooth in the rear. So you're looking at a 42-tooth rear sprocket versus the 43-tooth on the MT-07. And this R7 right here is fitted with the optional quick shifter. That's a $200 part. It only supports clutchless upshifting, not downshifting, but a very good part to have for track riding. If you're going to be tracking this bike, that's definitely a worthy upgrade.
A lot of people were upset and said it can't be a super sport with a parallel twin, it needs an inline-four. Yamaha doesn't put out an official horsepower figure for this bike, but if you look up the MT-07, which this shares an engine with, you'll find that it makes anywhere between 72 and 75 horsepower depending on whose site you're looking at. And this is no different than that. ECU tuning is the same on these two bikes, besides the fact that this ECU is set up to use a quick shifter, but other than that, the tuning's pretty much identical. Only difference is the different sprocket in the rear. And granted, yes, 72-ish horsepower isn't as much as the old R6, but do you really need that much power? Maybe the inline-four has extreme performance that this lacks, but this has a fun level of performance that an inline-four doesn't have. The fact that you could punch it in third gear out of a turn and you have good power all the way through the rev range makes it a really fun bike. I think it's got more usable power and it's more fun than an R6, but then there's other people who really are going to want to hear that inline-four screaming and will think this won't be enough. And yeah, an inline-four might have better race performance, but how many people with R6s are actually racing them? It'll be the same thing with the R7. For the kind of person that wants the look of a super sport, might do the occasional track day, and really just wants a cool looking bike for the street.
All right, let's take a look at the design. It looks very R6-ish. If you know what an R6 looks like, this looks very, very similar. They definitely didn't stray too far away from their heritage with the R6. Front end looks very similar to the R6 that came out in 2017. So you have these running lights on the outside here, and then a headlight in the duct in the middle. A lot of people weren't super happy with this front light, and it seems like 2021 might be the year of Yamaha making people angry with their headlights. The R7 is extremely narrow. You can see just how slim it is. It's actually slimmer than the R3. The bodywork doesn't stick out quite as far as the R3, which is pretty interesting. Yamaha also says this is their most aerodynamic R-Series bike ever, and it weighs just 414 pounds wet, so really manageable, really confidence inspiring. I'm a small dude and I feel like I can handle this with ease. New tank design, which is very slim as well. You have this cutout down here which you can tuck your helmet in, get behind the windscreen, really get your aero going. Tail section looks pretty much identical to the R1 and the R6. In fact, I think that is the same exact tail light. All right, let's talk about the chassis. This is not just an MT-07 with fairings slapped on it. They made quite a few changes to make this a true super sport and not just a naked upright bike with fairings on it. Very similar tubular frame to what you get on the MT-07, but it has been revised and they fitted it with these aluminum side braces just to make it a little more stiff, more rigid. That helps improve torsional rigidity. You don't get as much sway or flex in the swing arm pivot when you're going around turns. So nice that they stiffened up the bike. The wheelbase, the rake, and the trail of the R7 have also been modified when compared to the MT-07 to make it better for riding twisty roads, cornering on a racetrack, and not just a commuter bike like a lot of people use the MT-07 for. Also, the fork pitch has been widened, so the forks now sit the same distance apart as the old R6, whereas the MT-07 has its forks a little bit closer together. That just keeps this more stable out on the track. As far as suspension goes up front, you're looking at 41mm inverted KYB forks. They're fully adjustable, and that is a major step up from what you would find on an MT-07. Out back, you have a monoshock, as you can see right there, and that is going to be adjustable for preload and rebound damping. You can see the adjustment screw right there. I'm really impressed with the brakes on this machine. You can see the discs down here, 298mm discs, so pretty beefy. Radial mount calipers as well, and then a new Brembo master cylinder. So good parts, and definitely brings you down to a stop pretty quick. Digging the brakes for sure. Now my tires are in warmers right now, but I just wanted to briefly talk about tires. I don't have too much to say about them because I am not riding on stock tires today. Stock will be a Bridgestone Battle Axe Hypersport S22. That's a tire that Yamaha has used on many of their MT bikes before, so pretty familiar tire there. But today these are Battle Axe Racing R11 tires, and of course we're using warmers. 180 with rear, 120 front, so can't speak to the stock tires, and I just wanted you to know that I'm not riding on the factory tires today.
Oh my God! Woo! Go for the pass. Oh, I didn't get it. Go for the pass again. Woo!
All right, let's fire on the dash so you can see what that looks like. This is an LCD, not a TFT. That's definitely to keep costs down, but it's a little bit of a bummer. It would have been nice to see a TFT, especially since there are more inexpensive bikes out there that do have TFT displays, but decent size, looks pretty good. I like the white on black background, and everything you need to see is right here. So you've got RPM, it turns to red there at the end. That's the only color in the screen. Gear indicator, quick shifter, speed, fuel gauge, some dummy lights up top, and then you actually control it using this right here. So you can go through and change that parameter on the bottom right there. And it's nice that the buttons aren't up here on the screen, so you don't need to take your hands off the handlebar to control your dash. No tech on this bike, doesn't have an IMU or anything like that. It does have ABS, which is standard. No riding modes either. This is controlled the old-fashioned way by throttle cables, so that's the reason none of the CP2 bikes in Yamaha's lineup have ride modes. All right, so let's take a look at the seating position on this new R7. Very aggressive. You can see you have plenty of room to slide your butt back, throw your elbows out. 32.9-inch seat height on this bike, which is somewhere between the R3 and the R6. So you're kind of right between those two bikes in terms of seat height. Very manageable, very comfortable. The tank scallops in quite a bit for your knees. You have this nice spot to rest your chest on and kind of get your helmet down if you want to get that aggressive with it. Overall, a pretty comfortable bike for both street riding and track riding. Here's the other color option that this bike is coming in for 2022. This is Performance Black. It's an all gloss black and it looks pretty cool in person. I especially like the light blue accents on the side and up front. You get the same blue accents on the Yamaha Racing Blue that has the metallic blue and matte black fairings. Not a bad look for either. I do wish the color options were a little crazier though. Yamaha's pretty good at doing really cool color combinations on their MT series of bikes, and I wish they did the same with these because, I don't know, I just think there could be a little more pop and a little more excitement in that color.
Now, as far as suspension goes, it feels really good. This is set up a little stiffer than it would be from the factory or the factory recommended settings. Yamaha stiffened up the suspension specifically for this track day, but it feels really, really good. Brakes are also really grabby. ABS is standard, and I do feel it cutting in every once in a while, especially in the rear. But this is a bike most people are going to ride on the street 99% of the time. And if you really wanted to disable it, I'm sure you could pull a fuse and do without it. This is not an MT-07 at all. Feels completely different than an MT-07. Obviously, you can ride this way harder. If you own an R3, this is definitely a step up from that. If you own an R6, this is definitely different from that. Same thing with the FZ07. Totally different bike. Oh man, this is freaking fun! Roll out of third gear, crack the throttle wide open! Oh, I love it.
All right, let's talk about competition real quick because that's pretty interesting. This is an all new concept from Yamaha doing a parallel twin in a super sport. So if you want another Japanese middleweight super sport, you're gonna have to go with an inline-four, at least for now. So this is kind of a unique pick. Now the new RS660 from Aprilia also uses a parallel twin, but that bike's kind of in a different class and meant for a different kind of rider. It's way more premium. It's got, you know, better features, IMU, which this doesn't have, more tech, but that bike is also quite a bit more expensive. So you get what you pay for, and this is definitely an easier buy than the Aprilia. Let's talk about the name R7 really quick because that sparked quite the controversy when this bike was first announced on the internet. If you don't know, the R7 was a limited bike back in 1999. It was a wicked bike. You can look into it if you're really interested in all that. I'm not going to go into all the details, but people really thought this shouldn't be called an R7. They thought maybe an R07 would have been more fitting. There's some other names people were throwing around in the comments section of our previous video. But Yamaha's answer to that is that most of the people buying this bike are pretty young and probably don't even know about the old R7, and plus they wanted to keep this in the R lineup, and that's kind of what's so appealing about this bike, is it's more streetable than an R6, but it still has that super sport look. It's still a true R series super sport. So they wanted to stick with the name, keep it in the family, and not lose the heritage, and I kind of agree with that. I think it's not a bad call for them to keep this bike as an R7.
Really nimble, really flickable. I feel like I'm manhandling this bike, and I love it. This is an awesome machine, guys. Yamaha knocked it out of the ballpark with this one. And give it enough time, I think people will start to come around and realize that a parallel twin in a super sport is sick. And for 9 grand, man, I thought this bike was going to be like 12, like the old R6. But you get a lot of bike here for 9 grand. Crap load of bike.
All right, there you have it, guys. There's a full review of the brand new 2022 Yamaha YZF-R7, their new middleweight super sport powered by a really, really cool Parallel Twin CP2. This is a really fun bike to ride on the track, and I'm sure it will be on the street too. And I like that the new R7 is more streetable. Most people buying R6s weren't using them as track bikes anyway. This is a blast on the track and definitely more capable on the street with all its low end power. The other thing I really like about this bike is the price. 9 grand for this bike right here. The old R6 was over 12 grand, and I thought this was going to be closer to 11. I knew it was going to be a little bit cheaper than the Aprilia, but I didn't think it would be 9 grand, and that's a hell of a lot of bike for 9 grand. The R7 will be available at Yamaha dealerships starting in June 2021, so it's right around the corner. Like I said earlier, it comes in black and blue. Can't go wrong with either. It's a pretty sharp looking bike. This would be an excellent choice for a track rider that wants a really fun machine to push on the track, and also a street rider who wants that super sport look with an engine that's a little bit better for getting around town and launching off of stoplights. There you have it, guys. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to head on over to tflbike.com so you don't miss any stories in the motorcycle world. Catch you in the next video.